Harper Vance thought the man she loved was a ghost. He wore flannel shirts, smelled like sawdust and cheap coffee, and played a guitar with a cracked neck. He told her his name was Luke. He told her he fixed boats for a living. And then one day he vanished. No note, no call, just gone. She spent 5 years trying to hate him, 5 years raising a son who has his eyes and his stubborn chin. She thought she had buried that part of her life, until she walked into the library of the biggest mansion in the Hamptons and saw a portrait hanging above the fireplace. The man in the oil painting was not Luke the boat mechanic. It was William Sterling, the heir to $1 billion shipping empire, and he was about to walk through the front door. Before we dive into this roller coaster of secrets and lies, tell us in the comments, would you forgive a lie if it was told to protect you? Or is a lie always a deal breaker? And do not forget to like and subscribe for more stories that hit you right in the feels. Let us get started. Setting, Queens, New York. Harper's apartment, 7 a.m. The alarm on the laminate nightstand vibrated aggressively, a silent demand for attention that Harper was not ready to give. 7 a.m. Harper opened her eyes and stared at the water stain on the ceiling. It looked like a map of a country that did not exist, much like the future she had planned 5 years ago. Mommy, the toaster is smoking again. The small, sleepy voice came from the doorway. Harper sat up, brushing hair out of her face. Noah stood there clutching a stuffed dinosaur that had seen better days. His pajamas were inside out. Again. "I am coming, buddy," Harper said, her voice raspy with sleep. "Do not touch it." She rolled out of bed, her feet hitting the cold floor. This was her life. Harper Vance, owner of Harper's Haven, a professional home organization company. She spent her days color-coding walk in closets for women who owned more shoes than Harper had dollars in her bank account. She brought order to chaos. She made messes disappear. But her own life was a disaster she could not organize her way out of. She rushed to the kitchen, unplugging the ancient toaster, just as a thin line of gray smoke curled into the air. The smell of burnt bread filled the tiny apartment. "It is okay," she said, forcing a smile for Noah. "We will have cereal, the dinosaur kind." Noah cheered, oblivious to the red envelope sitting on the counter. The eviction notice. Final warning, the stamp said in angry red ink. Harper poured the cereal, her hands shaking slightly. She needed a job. A big one. The small gigs, organizing pantries in the suburbs, decluttering garages, were barely covering the utilities. Rent in New York City was a monster that ate everything she earned. Her phone screen lit up on the counter. It was Chloe, her business partner and best friend. "Tell me you are awake," Chloe said the moment the call connected. She did not do hellos. "I am awake. The toaster tried to kill us, but we survived. Forget the toaster. Pack a bag, a big bag, and bring your best label maker, the industrial one." Harper frowned, balancing the phone between her ear and shoulder as she wiped up a milk spill. "Chloe, I have the Henderson garage today. Mrs. Henderson has 40 years of National Geographic magazines she refuses to recycle." "Cancel Mrs. Henderson," Chloe said, her voice dropping to a whisper, as if she were afraid someone was listening. "I just got off the phone with an agency. They need a team for an emergency job, a massive estate declutter and organization. Total overhaul." "Where?" "The Hamptons." Harper paused. The Hamptons. That was 2 hours away. That was old money. That was serious cash. "Who is the client?" Harper asked. "The Sterling estate." The name hung in the air like a heavy curtain. Even Harper knew The Sterling name. Sterling Shipping. They owned half the cargo ships in the Atlantic. They were American royalty. Chloe, Harper said, lowering her voice, so Noah would not hear. That is out of our league. We do apartments in Queens. We do not do billionaire estates. We do now, Chloe insisted. The matriarch, Eleanor Sterling, fired her last 3 organizers. She is apparently a nightmare. She wants the entire house prepped for the Sterling Summer Gala. It is in 2 weeks. She is offering $20,000 up front. Harper nearly dropped the sponge. $20,000. That was rent for a year. That was Noah's tuition for the advanced STEM program. His teachers said he needed. That was breathing room. Harper, Chloe pressed. Are you there? Harper looked at Noah. He was building a tower out of cereal loops. His brow furrowed in concentration. He had that little dimple in his chin, the one that belonged to his father, the one that reminded Harper every single day of the man who had left them. She swallowed the lump in her throat. She did not have a choice. She could not be afraid. She had a son to raise. I will drop Noah off at my sister's, Harper said, her voice steadying. Text me the address. We are going to the Hamptons. Setting, the Hamptons, the Sterling estate, 2 p.m. The driveway alone was longer than Harper's entire street. Her beat-up van, which shook every time she went over 40 miles, per hour, looked like a stain on the pristine white gravel. Towering hedges blocked out the world, creating a private universe of green manicured lawns and silence. And then the house. It was not a house. It was a palace, a sprawling mansion of gray stone and slate, with windows that reflected the afternoon sun like diamonds. It looked cold. It looked expensive. It looked like a place where laughter went to die. Harper parked the van next to a fleet of black luxury SUVs. Chloe was already there, leaning against her car, looking tiny against the backdrop of the mansion. "Ready to enter the beast's belly?" Chloe asked, handing Harper a coffee. "If the check clears, I will organize the beast's intestines," Harper joked, though her stomach was doing flips. They walked up the massive stone steps. Harper smoothed down her work uniform, a black polo shirt with Harper's Haven stitched on the pocket and practical cargo pants. She felt underdressed. She felt like an impostor. The heavy oak doors opened before they could even knock. A woman stood there. She was tall, thin, and wore a gray suit that looked sharper than a knife. Her hair was pulled back so tightly it must have given her a headache. "You are late," she said. Her voice was dry, like paper rubbing together. Harper checked her watch. "It is 2 p.m. exactly, ma'am. Missy Sterling expects vendors to be 15 minutes early. Being on time is being late." She stepped aside, barely giving them enough room to pass. "I am Mrs. Higgins, the head housekeeper. Follow me. Do not touch anything unless you are cleaning it. Do not speak to the family unless spoken to. And, for the love of heaven, do not scratch the floors with your equipment." They stepped inside, and the air changed. It was cooler in here. It smelled of lemon polish, fresh lilies, and old money. The foyer was vast, dominated by a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than Harper's entire education. "Mrs. Sterling is in a meeting," Mrs. Higgins said, marching them down a hallway lined with antique vases. "She wants you to start in the library. It is the legacy room. It has not been properly organized in a decade. It is a disaster." Harper glanced at Chloe. If a billionaire's idea of a disaster was a dusty room, this would be easy. But when Mrs. Higgins opened the double doors to the library, Harper gasped. It was beautiful, yes, Floor to ceiling, mahogany shelves, a rolling ladder, a massive fireplace. But it was cluttered with history. Stacks of yellowing papers, boxes of maritime logs, trophies, framed photos leaning against walls, and books piled haphazardly on the floor. "The gala is in 2 weeks," Mrs. Higgins said. Mrs. Sterling wants this room to be a showcase of the family history. Sort it. Catalog. Make it look like a museum. You have 3 days for this room." She turned on her heel and left, the sound of her sensible shoes fading down the hallway. "Okay," Chloe let out a breath. "This is a lot. But $20,000, right?" $20,000, Harper repeated like a mantra. "You take the north wall. I will start with the desk and the fireplace mantel." Harper put on her white cotton gloves. This was her zone. She could control this. She could take this chaos and make it make sense. She started with the mantel. It was covered in dust and heavy brass artifacts. Sextants, compasses, old telescopes. She carefully wiped them down, placing them on a velvet cloth. Then she moved to the stack of framed items leaning against the stone of the fireplace. They were covered in a thick layer of gray dust. She picked up the first one, a certificate of incorporation from 1920. Boring. She picked up the second one, a photo of a ship launch. She picked up the third one. It was larger, heavy. The frame was ornate gold. She pulled a microfiber cloth from her belt and wiped the glass. The dust cleared, and Harper's world stopped spinning. The air left her lungs in a painful rush. Her hands went numb. The frame slipped from her fingers, but she caught it against her chest just before it hit the floor. She stared at the image. It was a professional portrait, a studio shot. The lighting was dramatic, highlighting the sharp jawline, the dark, brooding eyes, the slightly crooked nose that gave his face character. He was wearing a tuxedo, looking uncomfortable, looking powerful. The brass plaque at the bottom of the frame read, "William Jacob Sterling IV, heir apparent." But Harper did not see William Sterling. She saw Luke. Her mind flashed back. 5 years ago. A pier in Queens. The smell of salt water and hot dogs. Flashback. "You have grease on your nose," Luke said, laughing. He reached out, his thumb brushing her cheek. His hands were rough, calloused, workers' hands. "It is engine grease," Harper teased, leaning into his touch. "Some of us actually work for a living boat boy." Luke smiled. It was a crooked, boyish smile that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. "Hey, fixing engines is an art form, Harper. I am an artist." "You are a broke artist," she said, kissing him. "But you are cute." "I have everything I need," he whispered against her lips. "Right here." And flash back. Harper stared at the portrait in the library. The tuxedo. The cold, arrogant expression. The name, William. Luke was not a boat mechanic. He was not a struggling artist. He was this. He was a Sterling. "Harper," Chloe's voice sounded miles away. "You okay? You look like you have seen a ghost." "I have," Harper whispered. Her voice shook so hard she could barely form the words. "Chloe, look at this." Chloe walked over, wiping her hands on her pants. She looked at the portrait. Then she looked at Harper. Her eyes went wide. "Oh, my God," she breathed. "That looks just like—" "Noah," Harper finished. "It looks like Noah." "That is Luke," Chloe hissed, grabbing Harper's arm. "The Luke. The one who went out for cigarettes and never came back." "He did not go out for cigarettes," Harper said, her anger rising like bile in her throat. "He went back to his castle." She felt sick, physically sick, all the nights she had cried, all the nights she had worried that something terrible had happened to him, that he was hurt, that he was dead. He wasn't dead. He was a billionaire. "We have to go," Harper said, putting the portrait down with trembling hands. "I cannot be here. I cannot work for these people. I cannot be in his house." "Harper, wait," Chloe said, panic in her voice. "The contract, the money. If we walk out now, we get nothing. We might even get sued." "I do not care," Harper hissed. "That man is the father of my child. He lied to me for 6 months, Chloe. He pretended to be poor. He pretended to be normal. And then he abandoned us." "Does he know?" Chloe asked. "About Noah?" "No," Harper said. "I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after he disappeared. I tried to call the number he gave me. It was disconnected. I went to the marina where he said he worked. They had never heard of a Luke, because Luke did not exist." Harper turned to grab her bag. "I am leaving. You stay if you want. I cannot breathe in this room." She spun around, ready to march out the door, and she ran straight into a wall of gray silk. Harper stumbled back. Standing in the doorway was an older woman. She was petite, but she had the presence of a general. Her silver hair was styled in a perfect bob. Her pearls were real. Her eyes were the color of steel, and they were currently drilling holes into Harper's soul. Eleanor Sterling. She looked at Harper. Then she looked past her at the portrait Harper had left leaning against the armchair. Then she looked back at Harper. She did not yell. She did not call security. She took a step forward, the sound of her heel striking sharply on the hardwood floor. "You are shaking, Miss Vance," Eleanor said. Her voice was quiet, terrifyingly calm. "I am not feeling well, Mrs. Sterling," Harper managed to say. "I think I need to leave." Eleanor walked past her. She picked up the portrait of her son. She dusted a speck of lint off the glass with a manicured finger. "My son hates this photo," she said conversationally. "He says it makes him look like a shark. I told him that in our world you are either a shark or you are bait." She turned to face Harper. "You recognized him." It was not a question. Harper froze. Lying to this woman felt like trying to lie to an X-ray machine. Harper started. "Do not insult my intelligence," Eleanor cut in. "I saw your face. I saw the recognition. And now I am looking at you, and I am seeing something else. Anger. Betrayal." She took a step closer. "Who are you? And how do you know William?" Harper straightened her spine. She was not the girl from the pier any more. She was a mother. She was a business owner. She was done being a victim. "I did not know William," Harper said, her voice gaining strength. "I knew a man named Luke. He fixed boats. He liked spicy tacos from a truck in Queens. And he was a liar." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Luke," she murmured. "That was the name he used during his sabbatical." "Sabbatical?" Harper let out a short, harsh laugh. "Is that what you rich people call it when you play with other people's lives? A sabbatical?" "He was lost," Eleanor said defensively. "His father had just died. He needed time away from the pressure. He went incognito." "He went invisible," Harper corrected. "And he left a mess behind." Eleanor studied her. She was calculating, assessing the threat level. "What kind of mess?" she asked softly. Harper reached into her pocket. She pulled out her phone. Her lock screen was a picture of Noah from last week. He was laughing. missing a front tooth, his dark hair messy, his eyes crinkling at the corners. She held the phone up to Eleanor's face, next to the portrait of William Sterling. The resemblance was undeniable. It was biological proof stamped in DNA and pixels. Eleanor stared at the phone. Her hand flew to her mouth. For a second the iron lady cracked. A grandmother appeared. Shock registered on her face. "Oh, my God," she whispered. "His name is Noah," Harper said. "He is 4 years old, and he thinks his father was a brave sailor who got lost at sea, because that was a kinder story than the truth." Eleanor looked up at Harper. Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was set. "Does William know? Number? Does anyone else know?" "Just my friend here," Harper gestured to a terrified Chloe, "and my sister." Eleanor took a deep breath. She composed herself in the span of a second. The emotion vanished, replaced by strategy. "This changes everything," she said. "It changes nothing," Harper countered. "I am leaving. I do not want your money. I do not want your family involved in my son's life. We have done fine without you for 4 years." "Have you?" Eleanor asked. Her gaze drifted to Harper's worn out sneakers, then to the cheap cut of her pants. "You are here organizing my library because you need the money, Miss Vance. Do not pretend otherwise." Harper flushed. She was right, and she hated Eleanor for it. "I will not let you destroy my son's life," Eleanor said. "He is finally stable. He is taking over the company fully next month. A scandal like this, a secret child, it would ruin the stock price. It would ruin his engagement." Harper felt a sharp kick in her chest. "Engagement? He is marrying Sloane Kensington in the fall," Eleanor said. "A merger of families. A perfect match. Course he was—" "Good for him," Harper said, her voice brittle. "Then I will go. You will never see us again." "No," Eleanor said sharply. "You cannot leave. If you leave now, you are a loose cannon. You could go to the press. You could sue. I am not like that." "Everyone is like that when 7 figures are involved," Eleanor snapped. She walked over to the desk and leaned against it. "I have a proposition. I am not interested." "You will listen," she commanded. "You need money. I need this house ready for the gala, and I need to know if you are the kind of woman who will sell my grandson," she corrected herself, her voice softening for a split second, "to the tabloids." She looked Harper dead in the eye. "Stay. Finish the job. Do the house. I will pay you double. $40,000. Harper's breath hitched. 40,000. That was life-changing. "In exchange," Eleanor continued, "you keep your mouth shut. You do not tell William. You do not tell the staff. You let me meet the boy. Privately. I want to see him with my own eyes. I want a DNA test." "I am not letting you poke my son with needles," Harper said protectively. "A swab. Painless," Eleanor insisted. "If he is a sterling, he deserves to be known. But on our terms. If you prove to be discreet, if you prove to be trustworthy, we will discuss support, tuition, a trust fund. He will never want for anything." Harper looked at the portrait of the man who had broken her heart. Then she thought of the eviction notice on her counter. She thought of Noah's shoes that were a size too small. She thought of the STEM program he wanted so badly. She could swallow her pride. For Noah. "Fine," Harper said, her voice hard. "I will stay. I will finish the job. But I have conditions." "Name them," Eleanor said. "I do not want to see him," Harper said, pointing at the portrait. "William. If he comes here, I am gone. I cannot be in the same room as him. I will not do it." Eleanor nodded. "He is in London on business. He will not be back until the day of the gala. You will be long gone by then. And," Harper added, "you treat me with respect. I am not the help. I am a professional." Eleanor straightened her jacket. She extended a hand. It was a business deal. "Agreed. Now, get back to work. This library is a disgrace." She turned and walked out. Harper leaned against the heavy oak table, her legs shaking so hard she thought she would collapse. "Harper," Chloe whispered, coming over to hug her. "Are you insane? $40,000. But staying here. In his house?" "I am doing it for Noah," Harper said, wiping a tear that had escaped. "I will clean his house. I will organize his legacy. And then I will take his money and run." But as she looked up at the portrait of William Sterling, at the dark eyes that she had once kissed, Harper had a sinking feeling. Nothing was ever that simple. Setting: the Sterling estate. The master bedroom. 3 days later. 10 a.m. 3 days. Harper had spent 3 days scrubbing the Sterling history. She had organized the library. She had color-coded the linen closet. She had labeled every spice in the massive kitchen, much to the annoyance of the French chef, who muttered things about crazy American women under his breath. She was exhausted. But the work was a distraction. Today was the master suite. Mrs. Higgins had given her the key card. Mrs. Sterling said to do the master walk in closet. "Mr. William has new suits arriving. Make space." Harper hated that she was touching his clothes. She stood in the middle of the closet. It was the size of her entire apartment. Rows of bespoke suits. Shelves of Italian leather shoes. A drawer full of watches that cost more than cars. It smelled like him. Sandalwood and something crisp like sea air. It made her chest ache. She was aggressively folding a cashmere sweater, imagining she was folding William's face when she heard it. The sound of a helicopter. It was loud, getting closer. The windows rattled in their frames. Harper walked out of the closet into the bedroom and looked out the window. A sleek black helicopter was descending onto the back lawn. The grass flattened under the wind of the rotors. "Who takes a helicopter to a house?" Harper muttered. The door of the chopper opened. A man stepped out. He was wearing a navy suit, the jacket unbuttoned. He had sunglasses on. He grabbed a leather duffel bag, waving off the pilot. He walked with a long, confident stride. Harper's blood ran cold. It was him. "William." "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Eleanor said he was in London. She said he would not be back for 2 weeks. She panicked. She was in his bedroom. She was holding his sweater. She needed to get out. Now. She threw the sweater on the bed and ran for the door. She sprinted down the hallway, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She needed to get to the service exit. She needed to get to her van. She rounded the corner of the grand staircase, moving too fast. The front door latched open with a heavy thud. "Mrs. Higgins," a deep voice boomed, a voice Harper knew better than her own. "Why is the gate code changed?" "I had to climb over the wall." Harper skidded to a halt on the marble floor, her sneakers squeaking loudly against the stone. He stopped. He took off his sunglasses. Time did not just stop. It evaporated. The world narrowed down to the 10 feet of space between them. He looked older. There were fine lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. His hair was shorter, styled perfectly. He looked tired. He looked rich. He looked at her. His bag dropped from his hand. It hit the floor with a heavy, dull impact. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He blinked, as if he thought he was hallucinating. Harper. His voice was a ghost. It was the voice that used to whisper good night to her. It was the voice that had promised her forever. Harper stood there, clutching her clipboard like a shield. She could have run. She could have cried. She could have screamed. But seeing him there, in his $1,000 suit, looking at her like she was the one who had disappeared, something inside her snapped. The sadness burned away, replaced by a cold, hard fury. She straightened her posture. She lifted her chin. "Hello, Luke," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Or should I call you, sir?" He took a step toward her, his hand reaching out. "Harper, how are you here?" "I am working," she said, stepping back. "I am the help. Remember, the people you ignore." "Harper, please," he said, the shock giving way to desperation. "Ah, I can explain." "Explain what?" she asked, her voice rising. "That you are a billionaire. That you have a helicopter. Or that you forgot how to use a phone 5 years ago." "I didn't forget," he said, his voice cracking. "I lost it. I lost everything." "You lost nothing," Harper shouted, the echo ringing through the massive foyer. "Look around you, William. You have everything. You have the castle. You have the empire." She took a breath, fighting back the tears. "You are the one who has everything," she whispered, "and I was just the vacation." "No," he said, stepping closer, his eyes intense. "That is not true. You were the only real thing I ever had." "Don't," she warned him. "Do not lie to me." "Not again." "William." A sharp, feminine voice cut through the tension. They both turned. Standing at the top of the stairs was a woman. She was blonde, beautiful, and looked like she had been airbrushed into existence. She was wearing a white silk robe. Sloane, the fiancé. She looked down at them, her blue eyes scanning the scene. She saw William, looking devastated. She saw Harper, looking furious, and wearing a polo shirt. She smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Darling," she purred, walking down the stairs like a predator descending from a tree. "You are home early. And who is this? Is the maid giving you trouble?" William looked at Sloane, then back at Harper. He looked trapped. "She is not a maid," William said, his voice low. "I am the organizer," Harper corrected, looking Sloane dead in the eye. "And I was just leaving." She pushed past William. She could smell his cologne. It made her want to scream. "Harper, wait!" William called out. She did not stop. She marched to the door, shoved it open, and walked out into the fresh air. She made it to her van before her knees gave out. She slumped against the steering wheel, gasping for air. He was here. He had seen her. And now the game was on. Harper Vance had walked away. She had fled the Sterling estate with her dignity intact and her heart pounding like a drum. But dignity does not pay the rent, and dignity certainly does not pay for a 4-year-old's tuition. So she went back. She went back into the lion's den, armed with a label maker and a contract that was worth $40,000. She thought she could avoid him. She thought she could hide in the shadows of the massive mansion and finish her job. She was wrong. Because William Sterling was not just a billionaire heir anymore. He was a man who had found the only woman he ever loved, and he was not going to let her disappear again. And he had no idea that the biggest secret was currently playing with Lego bricks in his mother's rose garden. Setting: the Sterling estate. The wine cellar. 5 p.m. The Sterling wine cellar was colder than the rest of the house. It was a labyrinth of stone arches and dusty bottles that cost more than Harper's van. It was the perfect place to hide. Harper was cataloguing a crate of vintage French reds, her breath misting in the chilly air. She was trying to focus on the dates, on the labels. 1995, 2001. She was trying not to think about the look on William's face when she had stormed out earlier that day. The heavy wooden door at the top of the stairs creaked open. Harper froze. She did not need to turn around to know who it was. The air in the room seemed to shift, becoming charged with static. Heavy footsteps descended the stone stairs. Slow, deliberate. "Mrs. Higgins said I would find you down here." William's voice echoed off the stone walls. It was deep, resonant, and filled with the exhaustion that tugged at Harper's chest against her will. Harper did not turn. She kept her back to him, scribbling furiously on her clipboard. "I am working, Mr. Sterling. Unless you need a bottle of Bordeaux. Please leave me alone." "Stop calling me that," he said. He was closer now. She could feel the heat radiating from him, a stark contrast to the cold cellar. "I am not Mr. Sterling to you. I am Luke." Harper spun around, her anger flaring hot and bright. "Luke is dead," she snapped. "Luke was a mechanic who liked cheap beer and bad sci-fi movies. You are William Sterling. You wear $3,000 suits and fly helicopters. You are a stranger." William flinched as if she had slapped him. He stood under the dim light of the cellar, looking stripped of his armor. He had taken off his tie. His top button was undone. He looked desperate. "I am the same man," he insisted, taking a step toward her. "Harper, please. Just listen to me. 5 minutes. That is all I ask. If you still hate me after 5 minutes, I will walk away and never bother you again." Harper gripped her clipboard until her knuckles turned white. She wanted to scream at him. She wanted to throw a bottle of vintage wine at his head. But she also wanted answers. For 5 years she had wondered why. 2 minutes, she said coldly. "Start talking." William let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for years. He ran a hand through his hair. A nervous habit she remembered from the pier. "5 years ago," he began, his voice rough. "I was drowning. My father, he was a tyrant. He controlled every aspect of my life. Who I dated, what I wore, how I spoke. I was 25, and I felt like a puppet." He looked at her, his eyes pleading for understanding. "So I ran. I took a sabbatical. I bought a fake ID. I grew a beard. I went to Queens because it was the last place anyone would look for a Sterling. And then I met you." Harper felt a tear prick her eye, but she blinked it away. "And we had a nice summer. And then you got bored." "No," William said fiercely. "I fell in love. For the first time in my life I was happy. I was planning to tell you everything. I was going to bring you here. I was going to tell my father to keep his money, that I was choosing you." "So what happened?" Harper whispered. "Why did you leave?" "The morning I disappeared," William said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "I got a call. My father had a massive stroke. He was in a coma. My mother was hysterical. She said if I did not come back immediately, the board would dissolve the company. Thousands of people would lose their jobs." He took a step closer, his hand reaching out, but stopping inches from her arm. "I rushed to the hospital. In the chaos, I lost my burner phone, the one with your number. I didn't have your address memorized. I was stuck in ICU, waiting rooms for weeks. And by the time my father died and I could breathe again, I thought about you." "You thought about me," Harper scoffed. How noble! I thought about ruining your life, William corrected. I looked at my world, the paparazzi, the pressure, the sharks like Sloane, and I thought, Harper is too good for this. She deserves peace. She deserves a man who can give her a simple, happy life. Not this toxicity. You decided for me, Harper said, her voice trembling. You made a choice about my life without asking me. That is not love, William. That is arrogance. I know, William whispered. I was a coward. I thought I was being a martyr, but I was just scared, and I have regretted it every single day for 5 years. He looked at her with such raw intensity that Harper felt her knees weaken. I never stopped loving you, he said. Not for a second. The silence in the cellar was heavy. The air was thick with unsaid words. Harper's heart was warring with her brain. Her heart wanted to believe him. Her brain was screaming danger. It is too late, Harper said finally, her voice hollow. You cannot just walk back in and expect things to be the same. You have a fiancé. You have a gala. You have a life. I do not want this life if you are not in it, William said. Well, you have it, Harper said, stepping back, and I have mine, and my life is complicated, William. You have no idea how complicated. Before William could respond, the heavy door at the top of the stairs opened again. William? Eleanor's voice floated down. Are you down there? Sloane is looking for you. The wedding planner is here. The reality of the situation crashed down on them like a bucket of ice water. William closed his eyes, a look of pain crossing his face. Go, Harper whispered. Go to your fiancé. Go to your wedding planner. Leave me alone. William looked at her one last time. This is not over, Harper. He turned and walked up the stairs, leaving Harper alone in the cold, surrounded by expensive wine and cheap excuses. She leaned against the stone wall and let the tears finally fall. He still loved her. But he did not know about Noah, and when he found out, love might not be enough to save them. Setting, the Sterling estate, the rose garden. The next morning, 10 a.m. The deal with Eleanor had been specific. She wanted to meet the boy. Harper had dressed Noah in his best outfit, a little button-down shirt and clean jeans. He looked adorable. He looked terrified. Is this the castle? Noah asked, clutching Harper's hand, as they walked through the garden gate. It is just a big house, buddy, Harper said, squeezing his hand. We are just going to play in the garden while Mommy works. Eleanor was waiting for them on a stone bench. She was wearing sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat, looking like a queen holding court. When she saw Noah, she went perfectly still. She took off her sunglasses. Her steel eyes softened. She looked at Noah's dark curls. She looked at his chin. She looked at the way he walked. Hello, Eleanor said. Her voice was uncharacteristically gentle. Noah hid behind Harper's leg. It is okay, Harper whispered. This is Mrs. Sterling. She owns the big house. Noah peeked out. Do you have a dragon? Eleanor blinked. Then a small, genuine smile touched her lips. No dragon, but I have a fountain with frogs. Would you like to see? Noah's eyes lit up. He let go of Harper's hand and walked toward Eleanor. Harper watched, her heart in her throat. Eleanor was looking for flaws. She was looking for a reason to reject him. But Noah was charming. He was polite. He was perfect. Go ahead, Harper said to Eleanor. I will be organizing the patio furniture. I will be right here. Harper moved a few yards away, pretending to arrange cushions, but her eyes never left her son. She watched as the Iron Lady of the Hamptons knelt down on the grass on her Chanel suit to help Noah stack garden stones. It was working. Eleanor was melting. And then the patio door opened. Harper froze. William walked out. He was on the phone, pacing, looking agitated. "I told you sell the stocks in the Asian market," he was saying. "I do not care what the analysts say. Just do it." He hung up the phone and rubbed his temples. He looked up. He saw Harper. He froze. Then he looked past her. He saw his mother sitting on the grass. And he saw the boy. Noah was laughing at something Eleanor had said. The sound was pure joy. It carried across the garden like a bell. William stared. He dropped his phone. It landed on the soft grass with a dull thud. He took a step forward. Then another. He looked like a man walking into a dream. He walked right past Harper. He did not even see her. His eyes were locked on Noah. "Mom," William said, his voice barely a whisper. Eleanor looked up. Panic flashed in her eyes. This was not part of the plan. William was not supposed to be here. Noah turned around. He saw William. Noah's eyes went wide. He stood up, wiping dirt from his hands. He tilted his head to the side, studying the tall man in the suit. William stopped 3 feet away. He was trembling. He looked at Noah's face. He saw the eyes that stared back at him from the mirror every morning. He saw the dimple. He saw the shape of the nose. The math hit him like a physical blow. 5 years. 4 years old. He turned slowly to look at Harper. His face was a mask of shock and devastation. "Harper," he choked out. Who is this?" Harper walked over. She stood between William and Noah, a protective lioness. "This is Noah," she said quietly. William looked back at the boy. Tears filled his eyes, spilling over without shame. "He looks—" William's voice broke. "He looks like me." "Yes," Harper said. "He does." William fell to his knees. He did not care about the suit. He did not care about the dirt. He needed to be on Noah's level. "Hi," William whispered. Noah looked at Harper for reassurance. Harper nodded. Noah took a step closer to the strange man who was crying. "Are you the giant?" Noah asked. William blinked, tears tracking through the dust on his cheeks. The giant?" "Mommy tells me stories," Noah explained seriously, "about a giant who went away to save the kingdom. But he got lost." William looked at Harper. His heart broke into 1,000 pieces. She had not made him a villain. She had made him a hero. "Yes," William choked out, a sob escaping his throat. "I am the giant. And I did get lost. I got very, very lost." "It is okay," Noah said, reaching out a small, dirty hand to pat William's shoulder. "Mommy has a GPS. She can find anything." William laughed. It was a wet, broken sound. He reached out, his hand hovering near Noah's face, afraid to touch him, afraid he might disappear. "Can I—" William looked at Harper, begging for permission. "Can I hug him?" Harper felt her own tears falling. She nodded. William wrapped his arms around his son. He buried his face in Noah's small shoulder. He held him like he was the most precious thing in the universe. Noah, confused but kind, patted William's back. There, giant. Do not cry." It was a moment of perfect, heartbreaking beauty. The family that should have been, finally together in the sunlight. And then the sound of ice clinking against glass shattered the moment. Setting, the Sterling estate, the rose garden. Moments later. "Well," a cool, sharp voice cut through the air. Isn't this a touching domestic scene? William stiffened. He pulled back from Noah, wiping his face hastily. He stood up, placing himself instinctively between Noah and the intruder. Sloane Kensington stood on the patio steps. She was wearing a white sundress and holding a glass of iced tea. She looked impeccable. She looked dangerous. She walked down the steps, her gaze flicking from William to Harper, and finally resting on Noah. She did not look at Noah with warmth. She looked at him like he was a stain on a carpet, a problem to be removed. "Sloane," William said, his voice hard, "go inside." "I don't think I will," Sloane said, taking a sip of her tea. She walked closer, circling them like a shark. "I was wondering why my fiancé was crying in the dirt with the hired help's child." She stopped in front of William. She looked at Noah again. She was smart. She was a crisis manager for a living. She saw the resemblance instantly. Her eyes widened slightly. Then they narrowed. "Oh," she said softly. A cruel smile played on her lips. "Oh, I see. The math is quite simple, isn't it?" "Sloane, be quiet," William warned. "Does the board know?" Sloane asked, ignoring him. She looked at Eleanor, who had remained silent on the bench. "Eleanor, did you know about the little heir?" "We are discussing it," Eleanor said, standing up and brushing off her skirt. "Privately." "Privately," Sloane laughed. It was a sharp, brittle sound. "There is no privately, Eleanor. Not with an IPO launching in 3 weeks. Not with my family's money backing your debt." Sloane turned to Harper. She walked right up to her, invading her personal space. Harper held her ground, pulling Noah closer to her leg. "You must think you hit the jackpot," Sloane sneered. "The secret, baby. The golden ticket. You think you can just waltz in here with your sad little story and steal the kingdom." "I do not want your kingdom," Harper said evenly. "I want you to step back." "Listen to me, you little gold digger," Sloane hissed, her voice low, so only Harper could hear. "I have worked 10 years to secure this merger. I have cleaned up William's messes before, and I will clean up this one." "That is enough," William shouted. He grabbed Sloane's arm and pulled her away from Harper. "Do not speak to her like that." Sloane yanked her arm free. She smoothed her dress, regaining her composure. "You are emotional, William," she said coldly. "You are not thinking clearly. But I am. Think about the stock price. Think about the morality clause in the merger contract. If it comes out that you abandoned a pregnant woman to play peasant in Queens, the deal is dead. The company collapses." She looked at William with a look of triumph. "You have a choice, darling. You can play happy family with the maid and the bastard and watch your father's legacy burn to the ground. Or," she took a step back, smiling sweetly, "or you can let me handle it. We pay her off. We send the boy to a nice boarding school in Switzerland, and we get married as planned." William looked at Sloane with pure disgust. "You are a monster." "I am a realist," Sloane countered. "And you are a sterling. Act like one." She turned and walked back toward the house, her hips swaying. At the door she paused and looked back. "You have 24 hours to fix this, William, or I call my father. And trust me, he will not be as polite as I am." The door closed behind her. The silence in the garden was suffocating. William looked at Harper. He looked at Noah, who was clinging to Harper's leg, looking scared. "Harper," William started. "Do not," Harper said, lifting her hand. She picked up Noah. "She is right about one thing, William. You have a choice to make." "I choose you," William said immediately. "I choose him." "It is not that simple," Harper said sadly. "It never is with people like you." She turned and walked toward the gate, carrying her son away from the castle, leaving the prince alone with his dragon. The lines had been drawn. On one side, $1 billion empire and a ruthless fiancé who would stop at nothing to protect it. On the other side, a single mother, a secret son, and a man who was finally waking up from a 5-year sleepwalk. The Sterling Summer Gala was supposed to be the wedding announcement of the century. Instead, it became a battlefield. Sloane Kensington had one card left to play, and it was a dirty one. But she forgot one thing: when you push a mother into a corner, she does not just fight back, she goes to war. Setting: the Sterling estate, the grand foyer. The morning of the gala, 9 a.m. The house was buzzing. Florists were carrying in mountains of white hydrangeas. Caterers were setting up gold chairs on the lawn. A string quartet was rehearsing in the ballroom. Harper was trying to stay invisible. She was finishing the last room on her list, the coat check closet. She just wanted to get paid and get out before the guests arrived. Miss Vance, Eleanor's voice, stopped her. Harper turned. Eleanor was standing with Sloane. It was an odd pairing. The matriarch and the shark. "We have a problem," Sloane said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "My grandmother's diamond brooch is missing. The one I left on the hall table yesterday." Harper felt a cold pit in her stomach. "I have not seen it." "Really?" Sloane raised an perfectly arched eyebrow. "Because you were the only one organizing the foyer yesterday. And let's be honest, $40,000 is a lot of money. But diamonds are forever." "Are you accusing me of stealing?" Harper asked, her voice steady, despite her shaking hands. "I am just stating facts," Sloane said. She turned to Eleanor. "Eleanor, we should check her bag, just to be sure, for the insurance company." Eleanor looked at Harper. Her face was unreadable. "Open your bag, Miss Vance." "This is ridiculous," Harper said. "I did not take anything." "If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear," Sloane said, reaching for Harper's canvas tote bag sitting on the bench. Before Harper could stop her, Sloane dumped the contents of the bag onto the marble floor. Label maker, water bottle, granola bar, keys, and a sparkling vintage diamond brooch. It clattered against the floor, shining guiltily under the chandelier. Harper gasped. I have never seen that before." "She planted it." She pointed at Sloane. "She put it there." Sloane looked shocked. "Me? Why would I steal my own jewelry?" "Eleanor, this is police matter. She is a thief. We have to call the authorities." "No police," William's voice boomed. He walked into the foyer. He looked tired. He looked at the brooch on the floor. He looked at Harper. "William, she stole from us," Sloane cried, clinging to his arm. "She is a con artist." "I told you." William looked at Harper. "Did you take it?" "No," Harper said. She did not plead. She did not cry. She just looked him in the eye. "I did not take it, William. You know me." William looked at her. He saw the woman who had once returned a $10 bill she found on the sidewalk, because someone might need it. He looked at Sloane. He saw the woman who had threatened to destroy his company yesterday. He looked at his mother. "Mother?" William asked. Eleanor looked at the brooch. Then she looked at Sloane. "Sloane," Eleanor said calmly, "that brooch has a safety clasp. It is impossible to take off without breaking a nail, and your manicure is flawless." Sloane froze. "And," Eleanor continued, pointing to a small, discreet dome on the ceiling, "we installed new security cameras last week. Shall we check the footage from 10 minutes ago?" Sloane's face went pale. The mask slipped. I was just testing her, Sloane stammered, to see if she was trustworthy. For the family. Get out, William said. His voice was low, dangerous. William, the gala is in 6 hours, Sloane shrieked. The press is coming. You cannot kick me out. I said, get out, William roared. Get out of my house. Get out of my life. Sloane looked around. She saw no allies. She grabbed her purse. You are making a mistake, she hissed at William. You will be the laughing-stock of New York by midnight. She stormed out, her heels clicking like gunshots. William turned to Harper. I am so sorry. Harper bent down and picked up her things. She felt drained. I am finished with the job, she said quietly. The house is ready. I will send you the invoice. Harper, wait, William said. Stay for the gala. I do not belong at a gala, William, she said. I belong in Queens with our son. Please, William said. Just tonight. I have something to do, and I need you there. I need you to see it. Harper looked at him. She saw the man she had loved. She saw the father of her child. One night, she whispered, for Noah. Setting, the Sterling estate, the grand ballroom. 8 p.m. The ballroom was a sea of black tuxedos and designer gowns. Champagne flowed like water. Cameras flashed. Harper stood in the back, near the catering entrance. She was wearing a simple black dress she had borrowed from Chloe. She felt invisible. William stood on the stage. He looked commanding. He tapped the microphone. The room went silent. Thank you all for coming, William said. Tonight was supposed to be an engagement party. A murmur went through the crowd. But plans change, William continued. For a long time I have tried to be the man this portrait expected me to be. He pointed to a massive painting of his father behind him. I tried to be perfect. I tried to be a shark. He looked out into the crowd. He found Harper's eyes in the shadows. 5 years ago I met someone who taught me that you do not need a title to be a good man. You just need to be honest. And I have not been honest. The room was dead silent. Even the waiters stopped moving. I have a son, William announced. Gasps erupted. Phones were raised instantly. His name is Noah, William said, a smile breaking through his serious face. He is 4 years old. He likes dinosaurs and building towers, and he is the best thing I have ever done. He took a deep breath. I am not marrying Sloane Kensington. I am not merging our companies. If the stock drops, let it drop. I will build it back up, but I will build it on truth. He stepped off the stage and walked through the crowd. The sea of people parted for him. He walked straight to the back of the room. To Harper. He stopped in front of her. I am done hiding, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I am done running. I love you, Harper. I loved you in Queens when I had nothing, and I love you here when I have everything. Please. Let me be the father he deserves. Let me be the man you deserve. Harper looked at him. She saw the fear in his eyes. He had just blown up his life for her. She smiled. You are going to have to learn how to change a tire, she said. And Noah eats a lot of dinosaur nuggets. William laughed. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her. The crowd erupted, some in shock, some in applause. Eleanor stood on the balcony, sipping champagne. She watched her son kiss the organizer. She smiled. Finally, she whispered, some life in this house. Setting, Harper's apartment, Queens. 1 week later, there was a knock on the door. Harper opened it. William was standing there. He was not wearing a suit. He was wearing jeans. and a flannel shirt. It looked brand new, stiff and awkward, but he was wearing it. He held up a red toolbox. "I heard you have a leaky sink," he said. Harper leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. "I do. But I cannot afford a plumber. I spent all my money on a very expensive preschool." "I work for cheap," William said. "I accept payment in coffee and hugs from a certain 4-year-old. Daddy." Noah ran down the hallway and slammed into William's legs. William dropped the toolbox and scooped him up, spinning him around. "Hey, buddy, ready to help me fix the sink?" "Yes," Noah cheered. "Can I use the wrench?" "Maybe the small one," William laughed. He looked at Harper over Noah's head. "Can I come in?" Harper stepped back and opened the door wide. "Come in, Luke," she said softly. "Welcome home." Setting: the Sterling estate. 1 year later. The camera pans over the library. It is still grand, still impressive. But there are changes. On the mahogany desk next to the antique lobe sits a Lego castle. On the leather armchair there is a pile of National Geographic magazines. And above the fireplace the portrait of the stern heir apparent is gone. In its place is a candid photo. It is William, Harper, and Noah on a boat. Their hair is windblown. They are laughing. They look messy. They look happy. They say, "You cannot go home again." But sometimes home is not a place. It is a person, or two people. William Sterling nearly lost everything trying to be someone he wasn't. But in the end he found that the most valuable thing he owned wasn't his company, or his mansion, or his name. It was the truth, and a little boy who called him Giant. If you loved this story, hit the like button and share it with a friend who needs a little romance today. And tell us, what would you have done in Harper's shoes? Let us know in the comments. See you in the next story.